The first time an alpha tried to kill me, I thought he was flirting. In my defense, he sounded amused. Most people panic when they're about to be eliminated by a city-sanctioned pursuit unit. They beg. They swear. They blame traffic. I laughed. Rain slicked the glass towers of downtown into mirrors, neon bleeding pink and electric blue across wet asphalt. The night smelled like metal and ozone, like something about to explode. My bike purred beneath me, engine vibrating through my thighs, into my ribs, syncing with my pulse. Adrenaline is a language. It tells you when to brake. It tells you when to lean. It tells you when to fly. I don't always listen to the braking part. Delivery window closing, my watch chimed. Relax, I muttered to it. I'm emotionally available but not punctual. I cut left between two delivery trucks, tires skimming water, back wheel fishtailing just enough to make it fun. The package in my courier harness tapped lightly against my spine. Small, discreet, high priority. The small ones are always trouble. The route had shifted twice already. Not unusual. The city's traffic grid recalibrates every 30 seconds. Construction zones appear out of nowhere. Detours bloom like bruises. But this was different. The lights weren't just adjusting. They were steering me. I gunned the throttle anyway. Up ahead, a maintenance ramp spiraled toward the rooftop of a half-renovated shopping complex. Orange barricades blocked the entrance. Cute. I didn't slow down. The front wheel lifted. The engine roared. I hit the ramp at 58 miles per hour and shot upward, rain mist exploding around me like fireworks. For half a second, the city fell away. Suspended, weightless. God, I love that moment. I landed hard on the rooftop, tires skidding across gravel. The impact rattled through my shoulders and straight into my teeth. I whooped into the night. Unknown rider, a voice crackled through my helmet comm. Smooth, deep, calm. Not traffic control. Reroute immediately. I grinned. That depends. Are you buying me dinner first? A beat of silence. Then, you are entering a restricted pursuit zone. That did get my attention. The rooftop ahead had exploded in white light. Drones rose from behind ventilation units. Sleek, silent, predatory. Their scanning beams sliced through rain and shadow. Oh. I had just crashed someone's party. Across the adjacent building, two black pursuit bikes crested the ledge like wolves emerging from fog. Their headlights didn't flicker, didn't hesitate. They were hunting, and I was in the middle. Well, I breathed, laughter bubbling up from somewhere reckless inside me. This just got interesting. Disengage, the voice said again. Still controlled, still infuriatingly steady. Final warning. Are you always this bossy? I asked. Because it's doing something for me. There it was. A pause. Not confusion. Calculation. The drones shifted formation, tightening, funneling me toward the east edge of the rooftop. They weren't trying to shoot me. They were hurting. My pulse kicked higher. My omega instincts flared. Not submissive, not shrinking, but sharp. A heat along my spine. Awareness. The kind that tells you there's a predator nearby who's not sure yet whether you're prey or something more complicated. The alpha's voice returned. Identify yourself. Jay, I said easily, revving the engine. Charming local courier. 5-star rating. Another microsecond of silence. I pictured him somewhere elevated. Watching. Hands folded. Perfect posture. The kind of alpha who doesn't sweat when others run. You're interfering with an active operation, he said. Oops. Below us on the street level, black SUVs converged. A figure in a gray coat was being forced toward one of them. This wasn't random enforcement. This was a clean extraction. And I had just driven straight through it. The drones advanced. The two pursuit bikes split. One circling left, one right. They were boxing me in. Last chance, the voice said. No anger. No strain. Just inevitability. My laugh burst out again, sharp and bright. Okay, I said. Now I'm definitely flirting. I shot forward, not toward the obvious ramp, toward the west ledge, the one without an exit. Trajectory analysis predicts fatal drop. The voice informed me calmly. Rude, I muttered. The edge rushed closer. 30 feet. 20. The city yawned open beneath me. 3 stories down to an alley slick with rain and glowing puddles. There was no ramp, no bridge, just air. Jay, the alpha said, and the way he said my name made my stomach tighten unexpectedly. Not a threat, an observation, like he'd just discovered a new variable. At 10 feet from the edge, I swerved. Hard right. A maintenance plank, thin, half-hidden beneath construction tarp, connected this rooftop to the neighboring warehouse. Too narrow for standard pursuit bikes. Not too narrow for mine. The back tire clipped the tarp, sending it whipping into the rain. For half a breath, the bike wobbled. My heart slammed against my ribs, heat flooding my limbs. Oh, this was stupid. Deliciously stupid. I leaned forward, whispered, "Don't betray me," and hit the plank at full throttle. Wood shuddered under the weight. Drones, recalibrated too late. The pursuit bikes braked, their riders unwilling to gamble on splintered timber. The plank flexed, then held. I shot across and landed on the warehouse roof. Gravel spraying behind me. Silence, except for rain, and my own ragged breathing inside the helmet. My body hummed. Not fear. Alive. Too alive. "You adjusted faster than projected," the voice said at last. Not irritated. Impressed. I pulled to a stop at the far edge, looking back across the gap. The 2 black bikes idled on the opposite rooftop. Dark silhouettes. Waiting. "I get that a lot," I replied lightly. Below, the SUVs completed their extraction and rolled away like nothing had happened. The drones retreated. The hunt ended. For now. "You've compromised classified infrastructure," the alpha said. "There will be consequences." I should have felt the threat in that. Instead, heat coiled low in my stomach. "Is that a promise?" I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Rain streaked down my visor. Neon flickered across wet glass towers behind him. When he spoke again, his voice had shifted. Barely. Not colder. Sharper. Interesting. The channel went dead. I stayed there for a moment longer, heart still racing, watching the empty rooftop across from me. My hands trembled slightly on the handlebars. Not from fear. From something dangerously close to anticipation. I delivered the package 12 minutes late. Worth it. As I pulled off my helmet in the alley behind the drop point, the night air hit my flushed skin, and I laughed under my breath. An alpha had tried to corner me, and instead of running scared, I'd made him curious. That was my first mistake. The city started blinking differently the next morning. That's the only way I can explain it. I've ridden these streets for 8 years. I know which lights lag, which cameras glitch, which traffic nodes can be sweet-talked with a burst of speed and a little audacity. But today, the grid felt awake. I cut through Midtown at dawn, visor half open, cool air slicing against my overheated skin. My body was still buzzing from last night. The jump, the plank, the voice. God, that voice. Smooth. Controlled. The kind of alpha who doesn't bark. He observes. I rolled toward an intersection I've used 100 times. The light turned red. Too early. "Huh," I muttered. I slowed just enough to avoid suspicion, then slipped right between 2 taxis as the cross-traffic hesitated. Behind me, I heard the faint mechanical whir of a camera recalibrating. It pivoted toward me, not scanning traffic. Tracking. "Okay," I said under my breath. "That's new." 2 blocks later, a detour notification flashed across my wrist screen. Route adjusted. Congestion ahead. There was no congestion. I'd memorized the city's pulse. I knew when something was organic chaos and when it was curated. This was curated. Someone was steering me. And instead of fear, something warm bloomed in my chest. He's watching. The glass tower of Urban Stability Command rose out of downtown like a blade. 47 floors. Reflective black. No logos. You only noticed it if you already knew what it was. Inside, rows of screens wrapped around a circular operations floor, city feeds, cascading in live grids. Traffic nodes, rooftop cameras, thermal overlays, pursuit vectors, order in motion. Omar adjusted his headset and leaned closer to his console. Subject Carter deviated again, he reported calmly. Predictive grid suggests anticipatory learning. Max Rivera stood behind him, hands clasped loosely behind his back. Tall, still, unreadable. On the main screen, my bike streaked through early morning traffic, red and silver against gray streets. He's not deviating, Max said quietly. He's adapting, Omar nodded. Recommendation? Max didn't answer immediately. His eyes tracked my path as if I were a line of code unfolding in real time. Increase environmental pressure, he said at last. Do not engage. Omar hesitated, barely. Understood. He believed in order, in stability, in the system. The city was safer when variables were reduced. Max believed in patterns, and I was becoming one. By noon, I'd had enough. I ducked into Lena's garage, a concrete cave wedged beneath an overpass, smelling of oil and burnt rubber. Strings of mismatched lights hung from exposed beams. 3 bikes sat half disassembled like metallic skeletons. Lena emerged from behind a lift platform, wiping her hands on a rag. You look smug, she said. Which means, you did something stupid. I prefer legendary, I replied, pulling off my helmet. She squinted at me. Beta. Sharp-eyed. Hair buzzed short, streaked with electric blue. You crossed pursuit lines last night, didn't you? I blinked. Define. Crossed. J. Okay. Yes. Maybe I briefly interrupted a city-sanctioned abduction. She froze. You what? Accidentally. Lena dropped the rag. Are you trying to get erased? Relax. They didn't shoot me. That's not comforting. I leaned against my bike, grinning despite the tight coil in my stomach. You ever feel like the grid's different today? She studied me carefully. Cameras flagged you 3 times this morning. 3? That's flattering. J. Her tone shifted, lower, serious. Urban stability doesn't flag for fun. If they're adjusting around you, it means someone high up cares. Heat crept up my neck. Not fear. Anticipation. Define cares. She rolled her eyes and walked toward her terminal. You're not going to like this. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. The screen flickered through layers of encrypted access. Lena shouldn't have had clearance for even half of it. But Lena collects secrets the way I collect scars. A face appeared. Mine. Helmet off. Rain streaking down my cheeks from last night. Eyes bright. Laughing. Below it. Subject, J. Carter. Status. Variable. Classification. Too fast. I stared at it. Too fast. Lena swallowed. You're in a restricted database. My pulse kicked higher. The words should have chilled me. Instead, they felt like a title. Who's monitoring it? I asked. She hesitated. Then she turned the screen slightly. A secondary tag scrolled beneath my profile. Oversight, M. Rivera. The name hit like a shift in gravity. Max. He's not some random field alpha, Lena said quietly. He's Central Command. I stared at my own image. Caught mid-laughter, eyes reckless and alive. He's watching, I murmured. Jay. This isn't romantic. I didn't say it was, but my body betrayed me. Warmth spreading low and sharp, awareness prickling along my skin. Somewhere across the city, in a glass tower that sliced the skyline in half, an alpha was studying me like a problem he hadn't solved yet. And I, God help me, liked it. In the tower, Max zoomed in on the paused frame of my face. Not the speed, not the mechanics, the expression. He tilted his head slightly. Interesting, he murmured again. Behind him, Omar adjusted another traffic node. Outside, the city shifted. And this time, it was moving for me. The first rule of being hunted is simple. If they're adjusting the city around you, they're not trying to catch you. They're studying you. By day 3, it was official. This wasn't surveillance. It was a syllabus. I hit the upper-tier freeway at sunset, engine snarling beneath me as the city peeled open in layers. Glass towers below, elevated rails above, Traffic stacked like a metallic bloodstream. The sky burned orange and violet, reflecting off every surface. The city looked beautiful. Predatory. My wrist display blinked. Route optimized. Speed priority enabled. That was new. I smirked. How generous. The on-ramp ahead cleared unnaturally fast. 2 trucks shifted lanes in perfect symmetry. A traffic light stayed green half a second longer than physics should allow. He was smoothing my path, not blocking it. Testing acceleration. Max, I said into my helmet mic. You spoil me. Silence. Then, Subject Carter, that calm voice replied, smooth as poured steel. You are not authorized to access this channel. Yet here we are. A pause. I imagined him in that tower, hands behind his back, watching my heat signature climb. You altered 3 municipal lanes yesterday, he said. That required predictive counter-steering. Ah, I said. You noticed. Ahead, a digital road sign flickered. Congestion, left exit. I veered right instead. Immediately, 2 patrol drones rose from beneath the overpass like mechanical birds. Not firing. Shadowing. You're improvising outside optimal corridors, Max observed. Feels good, doesn't it? I replied. The freeway split into 3 levels. Most riders stick to 1, predictable vertical flow. I dropped to the lowest tier. Bad lighting. Tighter curves. The drones adjusted altitude instantly. Escalating environmental pressure, Max said calmly. The lanes ahead narrowed without warning. Construction barriers slid into place via automated tracks. Not a full block. A squeeze. Oh, I breathed, laughing under my breath. We're doing this now? I stood on the pedals and leaned, slipping through a gap that barely existed. My shoulder brushed plastic. Sparks spit from my rear peg. The drones tightened formation. My pulse surged. Heat, flooding my limbs. Breath sharp and electric. This wasn't fear. It was being seen. He wanted data. Fine. I'd give him art. I shot down the exit ramp toward the old metro line, tires screaming as I braked late and cut across a service road. Unauthorized sector, Max warned. You keep saying that like I respect it. The metro tunnel swallowed me whole. Dark, concrete, echoing. My headlights fractured against graffiti-slick walls. Water dripped from overhead pipes, turning the tracks into slick silver lines. The drones hesitated at the entrance. Too narrow for their standard formation. You're degrading signal quality, Max said. Voice slightly distorted now. Good. The tunnel curved sharply left. I killed my headlights. Darkness swallowed everything. Engine only. Breath only. My Omega instincts sharpened, not shrinking, not submitting, but hyper-aware. I could feel him through the channel. Not physically, mentally. He was calculating. He loved control. I loved breaking it. You're smiling, he said suddenly. I almost choked. You can't see that. Your heart rate variability suggests amusement. I grinned wider. That's intimate. The tunnel forked ahead. 1 dead end, 1 exit. I took neither. Instead, I rode straight up the maintenance incline. Narrow steel ribs climbing toward a half-finished construction bridge above the city. The rear tire slipped once. I corrected. Adrenaline flooded hard enough to make my hands tremble. The incline spat me onto the skeleton of a bridge still under construction. Steel beams exposed, gaps yawning between sections. Wind tore across the open span. Below us, traffic crawled like veins full of light. Your probability of catastrophic failure has increased to 38%, Max informed me. That's the hottest thing you've said all week. For the first time, he exhaled. Not frustration, not anger, something closer to laughter. Proceed, he said. The word landed differently. Not command. Permission. I accelerated. Half the bridge deck wasn't finished. Only temporary steel plating connecting the sections. The plates rattled under my weight. Behind me, 2 black pursuit bikes crested the incline. Ah, he joined personally. The engine tone was deeper, controlled, not rushed. He wasn't trying to overtake. He was pacing me. Testing lateral agility, he murmured. Testing your patience, I shot back. A construction crane swung slowly above us, automated system resetting for night cycle. Perfect. I angled toward a gap between plates and jumped. The bike lifted cleanly, wind ripping past my shoulders. For half a second, I was suspended above the city, free, alive, untethered. I landed hard on the next segment, skidding sideways before correcting. Behind me, one pursuit bike hesitated at the jump. The other didn't. He followed, not recklessly, elegantly. We landed nearly in sync. My chest tightened. Oh, he wasn't just watching. He was enjoying this. You adjust without hesitation, Max said quietly. You don't freeze. Freezing is boring. You don't calculate the way others do. I calculate fast. Instinct, he corrected. The wind howled across the bridge. The city roared below. The second pursuit rider slowed, unwilling to mirror the risks. Which meant this was just us now. Two bikes on unfinished steel above a city that thought it controlled us. You could stop this, he said. You first. I don't run. I don't kneel. The words hung between us, heavier than the wind. My body was lit up. Heat coiling low, pulse rapid, breath shallow. Not submission, defiance. And he felt it. I knew he did. He accelerated slightly, closing the gap until we were almost parallel. Close enough that I could see him clearly for the first time. Black visor, broad shoulders, still posture, even at speed. You are statistically incompatible with compliance, he said. Wow, I laughed. You really know how to flirt. A flicker in his trajectory, just enough to show he'd heard the edge beneath my tone. He wasn't suppressing me. He wasn't overpowering. He was measuring. The bridge narrowed ahead, unfinished edge dropping into open air. No ramp, no exit. He slowed, testing, waiting to see what I'd choose. I grinned inside my helmet and accelerated. At the last second, I cut sharply left onto a narrow maintenance ramp spiraling down toward street level. He didn't follow immediately. Smart. The spiral was unstable, one rider at a time. By the time he reached the descent, I was already halfway down, laughing breathlessly. At the base, I shot into traffic, weaving through headlights and disappearing into the city's bloodstream. Silence filled the calm. Then, you adapt beyond projected parameters, Max said. No irritation, no threat, just interest sharpened to a blade. I try, I replied lightly. Another pause. You are not prey, he said at last. My heart stuttered once. And you, I answered, are not bored anymore. The channel went quiet. But the city kept shifting, and this time, the hunt felt less like capture and more like invitation. I told myself it was just a game, a citywide chessboard made of asphalt and steel. He adjusts. I counter. He predicts. I improvise. No stakes beyond pride. That was the lie I was still telling myself when the tunnel swallowed us whole. It was past midnight when the grid glitched again. Not a reroute. Not pressure. A vacuum. The traffic around me thinned unnaturally fast. 3 intersections ahead went green in a cascading sequence, like someone laying out a red carpet. That's subtle, I muttered. The comm clicked alive without my prompting. You're learning, Max said. His voice was closer tonight. Less filtered, less distant. From the best, I replied lightly, though my pulse had already started climbing. Proceed eastbound. I don't take directions. You do when they benefit you. Arrogant. Accurate. I took the eastbound. The elevated road dipped sharply into an old service tunnel. One of the original transit arteries from decades ago. Narrow. Underlit. The kind of place the city forgot but the system still remembered. The entrance yawned ahead of me. Concrete arch chipped and stained. Yellow hazard lights flickered intermittently along the ceiling inside. You brought me somewhere romantic, I said. Silence. Then, I brought you somewhere controlled. I laughed under my breath and accelerated into the tunnel. The air changed immediately. Colder. Damp. Sound compressed. Engine echoing off curved walls in a rhythmic growl. The flickering lights above cast broken shadows across the ground, turning the asphalt into a strobe of gold and black. Halfway in, headlights flared ahead. Close, too close. I braked instinctively. He had entered from the opposite side, not through the grid, manually. His bike cut through the tunnel like a blade, controlled and steady, closing distance with deliberate precision. This wasn't a drone, not a simulation, not an algorithm. This was him. Max, I said softly. Jay. Our names felt different down here. Heavier. The tunnel was too narrow for side-by-side riding. Concrete walls hemmed us in. There was barely space to pass without clipping mirrors. He didn't slow. Neither did I. At the last possible second, we both adjusted, sliding slightly to opposite sides, knees nearly brushing. The air between us changed. And that's when it hit. Scent. Alpha. It shouldn't have reached me through helmet filters and engine smoke, but it did. Subtle, warm metallic like rain on steel. Controlled dominance wrapped in something clean and sharp. My body reacted before my brain could argue. Heat spiked low in my stomach. Pulse surged. My breath caught. I hated that. Hated that my omega physiology responded like this. Instinct threading through nerves, awareness sharpening into something intimate and dangerous. He felt it too. I saw it in the micro-adjustment of his posture, a fractional tightening in his shoulders. You're reacting, he observed quietly. Shut up. That wasn't an insult. Still, the tunnel lights flickered violently above us, plunging us into momentary darkness before snapping back on. In that split second, we were reduced to engine vibration and breath. He slowed. Just enough. Testing whether I would. I didn't. Instead, I accelerated slightly, forcing the space between us to compress again. Our handlebars nearly touched. My knee brushed his thigh for a fraction of a second. Electric. The reaction slammed through me. Heat flaring up my spine, skin hypersensitive beneath leather and Kevlar. God. I clenched my jaw. Careful, he murmured. Instinct can override judgment. I don't lose control. You already are. The audacity. The worst part? He wasn't wrong. My body was hyper-aware of him, of proximity, of breath, of the steady alpha presence that didn't demand submission but existed like gravity. Strong. Certain. I resented how good it felt. Why here? I demanded. No drones, he replied. No interference. Just variables. So, I'm a lab rat now? No. He tilted his head slightly, visor reflecting my own headlight back at me. You're an anomaly. The word settled somewhere beneath my ribs. Anomaly. Not threat. Not prey. Not asset. Something outside the equation. The tunnel curved sharply ahead. A blind bend. If we maintained this speed, one of us would clip the wall. He could have blocked me there. Pinned me. Forced me to stop. Instead, he slowed, just enough for me to take the inside line. I shot past him, engine screaming, barely missing the curve. At the exit of the tunnel, cool night air rushed in like a gasp. I burst out into open city, neon and rain and freedom swallowing me again. Behind me, he didn't pursue immediately. I risked a glance over my shoulder. He'd stopped at the mouth of the tunnel, bike idling in shadow, watching. The silence in my comm stretched long enough to hurt. You could have taken me, I said finally. Yes. Why didn't you? Another pause. The wind roared past my helmet. Because I don't eliminate what I don't understand. There it was again. Not predator, not rescuer, observer. My chest tightened unexpectedly. I'm not something you get to figure out, I snapped, more sharply than I meant to. I know, he said calmly, and then he turned his bike, rode back into the tunnel. Left first, no final warning, no threat, just that steady, controlled retreat. I sat there longer than I should have, rain cooling the heat beneath my skin. My hands trembled slightly on the handlebars. I hated that my body had reacted. Hated that instinct had flared so bright. Hated that part of me. A reckless, traitorous part, had wanted him closer. I revved the engine hard, drowning the memory of his scent in gasoline and noise. This was still a game, still a chase, still my city. But as I sped into the night, one truth lingered beneath the adrenaline. He hadn't tried to catch me, and that was far more dangerous. Adrenaline makes you feel immortal. Patterns make you paranoid. By the end of the week, I wasn't sure which one I trusted more. The chases had stopped escalating. That was the first red flag. The grid still shifted around me, but softer, less aggressive, more observational, like a scientist who stopped poking and started recording. Max hadn't called in 2 days, and somehow that silence unsettled me more than his voice ever had. The warehouse sat at the edge of the industrial district, half-collapsed roof, faded shipping logos peeling off rusted walls. To anyone passing by, it looked abandoned. To couriers, it was neutral ground. No cameras, no municipal nodes, signal dampeners built into the steel frame decades ago. We called it the Hollow. Inside, bikes lined the walls in uneven rows, some sleek and modern, others patched together from salvaged parts. The air smelled like oil, metal, and nervous sweat. Conversations hushed when I walked in. That was new too. Okay, I said lightly, pulling off my helmet. Either I've become famous, or someone stole my snacks again. A beta courier near the entrance avoided my eyes. Jay, Lena called from the back office, voice tight. Come here. I didn't like tight. The back room had once been a shipping office, cracked windows taped over, a single desk cluttered with parts and hacked terminals. The overhead bulb flickered like it couldn't decide whether to commit. Rafe sat in the corner. I hadn't seen him in months. He'd been one of us. Fast, precise, too confident for his own good. Omega, like me. Slight build, sharp eyes, always laughing. He wasn't laughing now. He looked thinner, paler, like the city had drained him. Jay, he said, standing abruptly. His movements were twitchy, hyper-alert. You shouldn't be out there. Wow, I replied, forcing a grin. Great to see you too. He grabbed my arm, harder than necessary. They're categorizing us. The word landed wrong. Who is? I asked. Rafe's eyes darted toward the ceiling reflexively, like cameras could grow out of concrete. Urban stability, he whispered. Lena turned her screen toward me. Encrypted files, stolen access. A header glowed at the top. Urban Stability Program, subset, speed threshold variables. Below it, names, dozens of them. Courier IDs, aliases, status tags. Relocated, decommissioned, archived. My stomach tightened. Archived? I said. Rafe swallowed. That's what they call it when you vanish. He stepped closer, voice lowering. They ran predictive models, behavioral flags, reaction time, risk tolerance, rote deviation patterns. He met my eyes. They don't like the ones who can't be predicted. Heat crept up my spine. Not the good kind. I scanned the list. Some names I recognized. Some I'd raced against. Some I'd trained with. Gone. Where are they? I demanded. Rafe laughed softly. Hollow. If I knew that, I wouldn't be hiding in a warehouse. He leaned against the wall, breathing uneven. I got flagged, he said. 2 weeks later, my routes started shifting. Drones increased. One night I was boxed in. His jaw clenched. I ditched the bike. Ran on foot. Went dark. My throat felt dry. How many? I asked. Lena's fingers hovered over the scroll pad. 32 flagged in the past year, she said quietly. 17. Decommissioned. 17. I scrolled further down. The list updated in real time, and then I saw it. Subject, Carter, J. Classification, too fast. Status, active observation, escalation level, pending. My name was highlighted, not archived, not relocated. Pending. I felt something inside my chest twist, not fear exactly, something sharper. He's testing me, I murmured. Rafe flinched. He I didn't answer. At the bottom of the file, a small oversight tag blinked. M. Rivera. Of course. Rafe followed my gaze. That's the Alpha running Central Pursuit, he said. He doesn't make mistakes. No, I replied quietly. He doesn't. Which meant every reroute, every tunnel, every narrowed lane hadn't been random. I wasn't collateral. I was being evaluated. Jay, Lena said softly. This isn't a game. My pulse thudded heavy in my ears. It had been a game. Until now. Why didn't they eliminate me immediately? I asked. Rafe shook his head. Maybe they need more data. Maybe they're deciding whether you're a liability or something else. I stared at my name on the screen. Too fast. The words no longer felt like a title. They felt like a verdict waiting to be signed. I can go dark, Rafe urged. Disappear. You should too. Disappear. Slow down. Hide. The idea made my skin crawl. I don't run from shadows, I said, though my voice was quieter than usual. Lena studied me carefully. You're not running from shadows, she said. You're running straight into the system, maybe, but somewhere deep beneath the dread, another feeling pulsed stubbornly. He didn't mark me decommissioned. He marked me observation. Max wasn't bored. He was choosing. And that meant, so was I. I looked up from the screen. Send me the full file, I said. Rafe stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You're going to confront them? I smiled slowly. No. My pulse steadied, adrenaline replacing unease. I'm going to make them escalate. If you stare at a machine long enough, you start seeing the ghost inside it. 3 nights after I saw my name on the list, I decided to stop being the subject and start being the glitch. I boosted Lena's relay device onto my bike and rode straight into the Lion's territory, downtown. Urban Stability Command. The tower looked different up close. Not imposing. Efficient. Glass reflecting the city back at itself like it was proud of what it controlled. You're insane. Lena's voice crackled softly in my earpiece. Signal dampeners won't hold for long. Relax, I said, circling the block. I'm not breaking in. Jay. I'm just leaning. I parked beneath the elevated rail directly opposite the tower's service entrance. The relay latched onto an open maintenance frequency like a parasite tasting blood. And then the city unfolded. Lena's screen streamed into my visor display. Live feeds. Grid overlays. Heat signatures moving in perfect formation. Urban stability wasn't traffic management. It was behavioral prediction. Inside the tower, dozens of screens curved around a circular operations floor. Operators in dark uniforms moved between stations with quiet precision. At the center stood Max Rivera. Even from grainy surveillance, he looked carved out of control. Hands clasped behind his back. Shoulders squared. Stillness, like gravity. Omar stood at a console beside him, reviewing projections. Speed threshold variables updated, Omar reported. Deviation index rising among independent couriers. Max's gaze shifted to a highlighted dataset. Mine. Projected reaction times. Route unpredictability. Risk tolerance index. Abnormal. Escalation window? Omar asked. Max didn't answer immediately. He moved toward the archive console instead. Access Urban Stability Program. Core, he said calmly. The screen shifted. I felt my breath hitch. There it was. Urban Stability Program. Primary objective. Maintain predictive social order. Subdirective 4 billions. Identify and neutralize unstable mobility patterns. Neutralize? I murmured. Lena inhaled sharply in my ear. They classify high-speed couriers as destabilizing variables, Omar continued. Voice steady. Statistically correlated with information leakage, underground logistics, and insurgent mobility. Insurgent. I almost laughed. I delivered encrypted packages and overpriced medical supplies. Rebel King. Sure. Threshold criteria? Max asked. Omar pulled up a graph. Reaction latency below 0.2 seconds. Route deviation beyond predictive modeling capacity. Resistance to containment pressure. A secondary tab blinked. Too fast. I knew what was coming before it loaded. Names scrolled. Archived. Decommissioned. Relocated. The euphemisms were cleaner than blood. They eliminate couriers who move too independently. Lena whispered. They think speed equals autonomy. Autonomy equals instability. On screen, Omar highlighted the newest entry. Subject, Carter, J. Classification, too fast. Escalation status, review pending. Recommended action, termination protocol, conditional. My stomach dropped. Termination, not archive. Not relocate. Erase. Omar's cursor hovered. His metrics exceed safe tolerance, Omar said. If we delay, he'll inspire replication. Inspire. I stared at Max. He didn't move. He didn't blink. Just watched the data like it was weather. He's not networked with insurgents, Omar added. No evidence of ideological alignment. Max's jaw shifted almost imperceptibly. He's not political, Max said quietly. No, he's instinctive. Omar nodded. Instinct is harder to regulate. Silence stretched. Behind me, traffic rolled normally, oblivious. Inside the tower, my life was being calculated. Proceed to conditional escalation, Omar said. My pulse roared in my ears. Come on, Max. Say it. Say I'm expendable. Say I'm a liability. He stepped closer to the display. Zoomed in. Not on the data. On the captured still from the rooftop. Me mid-laugh. Rain streaking down my face. He studied it longer than necessary. Probability of compliance? He asked. Low, Omar replied immediately. Probability of influence? Omar hesitated. There it was. The real fear. Not that I would break the system. That others might follow. He adapts beyond predictive modeling, Omar continued. He's the type the algorithm was designed to remove. Remove. My fingers tightened around the handlebars outside the tower. Inside, Max remained silent, and for the first time since this began, he didn't look analytical. He looked conflicted. Escalation requires your authorization, Omar said. Max exhaled slowly. Delay final authorization, he said at last. Omar blinked. Sir, extend observation window. Risk increases. I'm aware. Omar hesitated, then nodded. Understood. The status tag shifted. Escalation deferred. M. Rivera. My breath left me in a rush I hadn't realized I was holding. He could have signed it. One command. One word. Gone. Instead, he postponed. Why? Lena whispered in my ear. I didn't answer. Because I knew. This wasn't mercy. It wasn't sympathy. It was curiosity, and that might be worse. Inside the tower, Max dismissed the feed and walked toward the panoramic window overlooking the city. For a brief second, his reflection aligned with the streets below. He wasn't looking at traffic. He was looking outward, toward the grid, toward me. He's deviating from protocol, Omar said carefully behind him. Max didn't turn. He's not destabilizing the city, he replied. He's destabilizing you. That earned Omar a sharp look, but he wasn't wrong. I cut the relay and pulled away from the tower, heart pounding against my ribs. Termination protocol. Deferred. I should have been relieved. Instead, a colder realization settled in my chest. If the system wanted me erased, Max was the only thing standing between me and deletion, and sooner or later, he would have to choose. There's a difference between being hunted and stepping into the trap. The first is survival. The second is a choice. By the time I let them box me in, I was tired of being evaluated like a lab experiment. If Max wanted to study me, he could do it face to face. The grid tightened on purpose that night. No gradual pressure, no playful reroutes. Hard blocks. 4 intersections ahead, traffic froze mid-flow. Construction barriers sealed off side streets with mechanical precision. Drones descended low enough to cast moving shadows across my visor. I didn't accelerate, didn't veer, didn't improvise. I slowed. Subject Carter. Max's voice came through the comm, controlled as always. You've exhausted lateral options. Yeah, I said calmly. I noticed 2 black pursuit bikes sealed the rear corridor. A drone hovered in front of me, projection light scanning my biometric readings. Heart rate elevated. Adrenaline steady. Not panicked. Engine off, he said. I let it idle another second. Then killed it. The silence that followed felt enormous. Rain tapped softly against the concrete around us. I raised my hands slightly, not in surrender. Just compliance. The drone scanned again. Containment achieved. Omar's voice filtered faintly through the channel. The word containment made my skin crawl. Metal cuffs snapped around my wrists. Not tight. Not painful. Just restrictive enough to remind me who controlled the space. I didn't resist. That seemed to unsettle them more than if I had. The isolator facility sat beneath the tower. I recognized the architecture from the stolen feeds. Gray. Seamless. Clinical. The room they placed me in was small, walls smooth and sterile, no visible seams or cameras, though I knew they were there. A narrow bench. A single overhead light casting sharp white glare. No windows. No sound. Just the faint hum of ventilation. I sat. Waited. My pulse remained steady, though my muscles felt coiled beneath my skin. This wasn't fear. It was anticipation sharpened into something dangerous. The door opened without a sound. Max entered alone. No guards. No escort. Just him. Up close, without helmet and visor. He looked even more composed than I'd imagined. Dark hair, precise features, eyes steady and assessing. He carried stillness like armor. The room felt smaller immediately. You surrendered, he said. Don't sound so disappointed. He studied me for a long moment. You could have escaped. Probably. Why didn't you? I leaned back slightly on the bench, forcing casual ease into my posture. I got tired of guessing what you'd do next. A flicker in his gaze. Now you know, he replied. Do the first. Silence pressed between us. The air in the room felt different with him inside it, denser, warmer. The alpha presence wasn't overwhelming, but it was undeniable. Subtle gravity pulling at the edges of my awareness. My body reacted before I gave it permission. Heat crept low in my stomach. Pulse ticked faster. I hated that. I hated that even here, cuffed, boxed in, sterile walls closing around us. My instincts recognized him as something magnetic. I clenched my jaw. He noticed. You're reacting, he said quietly. Stop narrating my biology. It's relevant. To what? To your unpredictability. There it was again. Data. Metrics. Analysis. You're going to eliminate me, I said flatly. His expression didn't change. Termination protocol is under review. Cute phrasing. You're statistically destabilizing. I laughed softly. For riding a bike? For not slowing down. The words hung between us. I leaned forward slightly, wrists still bound in front of me. Why me? His eyes held mine without flinching. Because you don't slow down. It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't admiration. It was fact. You flagged 32 couriers, I continued. 17 gone. What makes me special? A faint shift in his breathing. You adapt faster than the model predicts, he said. You don't respond to pressure the way others do. And that scares you? No. The answer came too quickly. It interests me. There it was. Honest. Raw. Dangerous. My pulse spiked. Interest doesn't override protocol, I said. No. Silence settled again. The overhead light hummed faintly. You should have run, he added. I'm not prey. I know. He stepped closer. Not aggressively. Just enough to close the distance between us. Close enough that I could see the faint tension in his jaw. Close enough that my breath hitched against my will. You're not afraid, he said. Of you? A beat. Yes. I smiled slowly. That's the problem, isn't it? His gaze darkened slightly, not anger. Recognition. For the first time since this began, I saw something crack beneath the composure. Not weakness. Conflict. You are scheduled for review at 0600, he said at last. Which means, he replied evenly. I haven't decided. My chest tightened. He turned toward the door. Max. He paused but didn't look back. If you're going to delete me, I said quietly. At least be honest about why. A long silence. Then, you don't fit, he said, and left. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. I sat alone in the sterile gray room, cuffs cool against my wrists, heart still racing. He hadn't signed the order. Not yet. But this wasn't about data anymore. It was about choice, and I had just forced his hand. There's a moment before deletion. A silence. A held breath. Like the world waiting to see whether you still exist. I felt it at 5:59 a.m. The isolator lights shifted subtly, brighter, colder. The ventilation hum deepened. Somewhere beyond the seamless gray walls, the system was waking up for review. My review. I hadn't slept. I didn't want to dream about steel bridges and tunnel air and the way his voice had said, "You don't fit." My wrists were free now. They'd removed the cuffs after processing, which somehow made the room feel smaller. I flexed my fingers, trying to shake off the tremor. I don't tremble. I adapt. That's what I tell myself. The door slid open. Not Max. Two uniformed operators stepped inside, efficient and expressionless. Subject Carter, one of them said. Stand. I stood. Transfer for final evaluation. Final. My stomach dropped. Not deferred. Not extended. Final. Something had changed. 47 floors above, the operations center hummed with its usual precision. Except it wasn't usual. Omar stood rigid at his console, face tight. Update deployed at 0400, he said. Algorithm recalibrated overnight. Max's head turned sharply. Recalibrated how? Executive override. The main display shifted. Urban Stability Program. Revision 6.2. Subdirective 4 billions. Immediate neutralization of high-variance mobility threats. No more conditional review. No more extended observation. The column of names flickered. Archived. 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 Then, subject, Carter, J. Status, termination authorized. Automated execution window 615. Max's expression didn't change, but his pulse did. Omar saw it on the biometric overlay. Sir, Omar said carefully. The board expedited the protocol. They've determined prolonged observation increases systemic risk. Based on what? Max asked quietly. Based on you. Silence. You delayed action, Omar continued. They interpreted that as contamination. The word landed like a blade. Contamination, as if interest were infection. Max stepped closer to the display. They've removed discretionary control, Omar said. Termination will be executed by remote. At 6:15. Automated. Clean. No human hesitation required. Max's jaw tightened slightly. You recommended escalation, he said to Omar. Yes. And now? Omar hesitated. He's statistically destabilizing. And operationally? Omar didn't answer. Because operationally, I wasn't a threat. I was a variable he couldn't solve. 6 minutes, Omar said softly. They moved me into a secondary chamber. Smaller. Colder. No bench this time. Just a central platform and a ring of embedded restraints along the floor. Clinical. Efficient. Please remain still, one of the operators instructed. I laughed under my breath. Sure. Remain still. That's funny. My heart pounded hard enough to make my vision pulse. This wasn't a chase. There was no route to improvise, no ramp to jump, no tunnel to escape into. For the first time since this began, I felt it. Vulnerability, not the heat flare instinct from proximity, not defiance, something quieter. He's not coming. The thought hurt more than the idea of deletion. Because if he didn't intervene, it meant I'd misread everything. The door sealed. A low mechanical whine began to build from the walls. Automated containment field activating. Execution sequence initiating. A neutral voice announced overhead. I swallowed. Okay, this is it. I closed my eyes briefly. Not in surrender. Just to steady myself. I don't regret not running. I don't regret not hiding. I regret trusting him. Override code. Rivera Alpha 01. The whine cut abruptly. The containment field flickered and died. The door slammed open. Max stood in the doorway. No escort. No hesitation. Just him. The operators behind him looked stunned. Protocol breach, one stammered. Stand down, Max said. They didn't move. I am still central coordinator, he continued, voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Stand down. They stepped back. The automated system tried to reinitialize. Max pulled a small interface device from his jacket and connected it directly into the wall port. Manual override accepted, the system announced. Termination status shifted. Termination. Suspended. Authority conflict. Max's breathing was controlled. Too controlled. He was afraid. Not of me. Of what this meant. Why? I asked. Voice rough. He didn't look at me immediately. Because they removed discretion. That's not an answer. He finally met my eyes. They're accelerating the purge, he said. You're the first under the new revision. My chest tightened. I told you, I said quietly. You can't control this. His jaw flexed. I can control my authorization. You just broke protocol. Yes, the word hung between us. Heavy. Final. Above us, warning lights began flashing along the ceiling. Executive oversight notified, the system intoned. Max didn't look up. You need to decide, he said. About what? Whether you keep running? I almost laughed. You're asking me now? Yes. His composure had fractured. Just slightly. Not enough for anyone else to see. Enough for me. If I walk out of here, I said slowly, they won't stop. No. And you? A beat. They may remove me. There it was. The real risk. Not just me. Him. For the first time since the chases began, I saw it clearly. He wasn't testing me for amusement anymore. He was choosing a side. Why? I asked again. His answer came quieter this time. Because you don't slow down. The same words. But now they meant something else. Not accusation. Not analysis. Respect. The alarms grew louder. Decision time. My heart pounded. I stepped off the platform. I don't kneel, I said. I know. Then don't cage me. A flicker of something almost like relief crossed his face. Follow me. And for the first time, we ran together. The first time we ran together, the city didn't know which one of us to track. That was the point. The alarm in the facility hadn't been subtle. Red strobes. System alerts. Authority conflict warnings echoing through the sterile corridors. Max moved like he'd memorized every blind angle. Left, he said sharply. I didn't argue. We cut through a maintenance stairwell instead of the main elevator shaft. The concrete walls were raw, unfinished, dust clinging to the air like it didn't want to settle. You realize they're going to flag you as compromised, I said, breath quick but steady as we descended. They already have. That calm about losing your career? I'm calm about gaining clarity. I snorted. You're terrifying. We burst through a lower access hatch into the underground transit corridor beneath the tower. No cameras, no direct grid, just old infrastructure and shadow. 2 pursuit officers appeared at the far end of the tunnel. Max didn't hesitate. He flashed his clearance badge. Stand down, he ordered. The officers froze, confused by conflicting signals pouring into their comms. That hesitation was enough. Max grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward a secured bike dock. You're kidding, I said. His pursuit bike sat there, sleek, matte black, optimized for precision, not recklessness. You trust me to drive? I asked. No. Rude. He mounted first. I swung onto the back without another word, gripping the sides of the seat. He didn't move. Hold on, he said. I slid my hands forward, wrapping my arms around his waist. The contact sent a sharp pulse through my nerves. Alpha heat. Controlled. Steady. I swallowed. Don't read into this, I muttered. Focus, he replied. The engine ignited with a low, powerful growl. We shot forward. The underground tunnel curved sharply upward toward a service ramp that spat us out beneath downtown's layered freeway system. Rain had started. Hard. The sky cracked open with thunder, as if the city itself objected to this alliance. Dramatic, I shouted over the wind. Predictable storm cycle, he replied evenly. You're allergic to fun. We burst onto the street level, alarms from the tower echoing behind us. Traffic feeds were already scrambling. The grid didn't know how to categorize this. Max Rivera, central coordinator, flagged as rogue. Me, pending termination, now paired with him. The system stuttered. For the first time since this began, it hesitated. Drones launching, Max said. Voice calm but clipped. I see them. 3 units descended from above, red targeting lasers flickering uncertainly between us. Override key? I asked. Revoked. Of course. He accelerated hard, weaving through traffic with surgical precision. He wasn't flashy. He was efficient. Every lean calculated. Every gap intentional. It was beautiful. Take the overpass, I said suddenly. It's under construction. Exactly. A half-second pause. Then, he trusted me. We shot up the unfinished ramp and onto the skeletal spine of downtown's newest high-rise bridge. Wind howled across open steel beams. Rain slicked the surface into treachery. Below us, the city churned with sirens and flashing lights. Your idea of safety is concerning, he said. You love it. The drones tried to follow but struggled with wind shear between buildings. The bike slid slightly under us. Instinctively, I tightened my grip around his waist. He didn't flinch, didn't comment, just adjusted his lean. The bridge ended abruptly in a temporary drop to a lower rooftop platform. Tell me you planned this, he said. I grinned against his shoulder. Absolutely not. He didn't slow. We hit the drop at full speed. The impact rattled through both of us, my chest slamming lightly into his back. For a split second, his hand left the throttle just enough to steady me against him. Heat shot through me. God. Focus. We tore across the rooftop and launched onto the adjacent building, tires barely catching the edge. Behind us, one drone clipped the steel frame and spiraled downward in sparks. You're smiling, he said. I'm having the time of my life. You were nearly eliminated an hour ago. Details. Thunder cracked above us. Rain intensified. The rooftops of downtown became a chaotic maze of ventilation units, satellite dishes, and glass barriers. He navigated them with terrifying grace. You could have just asked me out, I shouted over the wind. He didn't answer at first. We leapt another gap, landed hard. Then, I don't date assets, he replied. Rude, accurate. I laughed despite everything. The alarms, the drones, the storm swallowing the skyline. Trust is strange. It doesn't always form in quiet moments. Sometimes it's born at 90 miles per hour, your arms wrapped around the person who just broke protocol to save you. Ahead, a narrow rooftop access ramp spiraled downward toward a service tunnel between buildings. Tunnel, I said. He nodded. We descended into darkness just as 2 more drones swept overhead. The tunnel was tight, barely wider than the bike. Water streamed along the floor. Engine echoes bounced violently off the walls. My heartbeat synced with the vibration beneath us. You understand what this means, he said quietly. That they want us erased? That I can't go back? I pressed closer, rainwater dripping from my hair onto his jacket. Good, I said. He exhaled something that might have been a laugh. We burst out of the tunnel onto a lower service road behind the financial district. Sirens wailed somewhere distant. The storm swallowed the skyline in sheets of gray. For a brief moment, no drones. No immediate grid response. Just us. He slowed slightly, not stopping, just enough to breathe. You chose, I said. Yes. Why? The question felt heavier now than it had in the isolator. His answer came steady. Because the system doesn't adapt, and I do. You evolve. Lightning split the sky behind us. I felt something shift inside my chest, not adrenaline, not heat. Something more dangerous. Belief. He wasn't hunting me anymore. He was betting on me. The bike roared back to full speed. We shot into the storm together, two anomalies moving faster than the algorithm could predict. And for the first time, I wasn't running alone. We didn't stop because it was safe. We stopped because the storm ran out of breath. By the time we climbed the last access ladder to the rooftop, the rain had thinned to mist, and the eastern edge of the sky was bruising into pale gold. Downtown stretched beneath us. Glass towers streaked with rain, traffic lights blinking in tired rhythms, sirens fading into distant murmurs. The city looked almost innocent at dawn. Almost. Max killed the engine. Silence settled between us, broken only by wind brushing across concrete and the faint hum of early morning power grids cycling back to stability. He dismounted first. I followed, legs slightly unsteady, not from fear, from everything else. The rooftop was wide and empty except for a row of ventilation units and a rusted satellite dish that looked like it hadn't worked in years. Warm wind rolled across the edge, carrying the scent of wet steel and something faintly electric. He walked to the ledge and stood there, hands resting lightly on the railing, posture composed but not rigid. I stayed a few feet back. For once, I didn't have anything sarcastic ready. You just destroyed your career, I said finally. Yes. No drama. No hesitation. Just fact. Regret it yet? No. The sunrise cut across his profile, softening edges that usually looked carved in discipline. He didn't look like Central Command anymore. He looked human. You started this because you were bored, I said. He didn't deny it. Yes. That surprised me more than anything else. I saw the anomaly in your data, he continued. Eyes still on the city. Your reaction time. Your refusal to yield to predictive pressure. It didn't align, so you hunted me for sport, for curiosity. Same thing. A faint breath of something like humor ghosted across his expression. I wanted to see if you would break, and you didn't. I stepped closer to the ledge, leaning beside him. The wind shifted. His scent reached me again, subtle, steady, grounding. This time my body reacted slower, not instinctive heat, something warmer. You know why I don't slow down? I asked. He turned his head slightly. Why? I watched the city wake up below us. Delivery trucks restarting routes, pedestrians emerging cautiously from buildings, the illusion of normal resuming. Because if I stop, I said quietly, I have to think. About what? About what happens to guys like me who don't fit. The words felt heavier out loud. He didn't interrupt. I learned early, I continued, voice lower now, that the system doesn't reward patience. It rewards compliance. So I chose speed instead. Speed doesn't ask permission. Speed doesn't kneel. I don't run because I'm fearless, I admitted. I run because I'm afraid of being contained. The confession hung between us. The wind carried it. He absorbed it. You think I don't understand containment? He asked softly. I looked at him fully. You built it. I inherited it. The distinction mattered more than I expected. I believed in order. He continued. Predictability prevents collapse. That's what I was trained to see. And now? He met my gaze directly. Now I see the cost. Silence again. Not tense. Just full. The space between us had narrowed without either of us acknowledging it. Close enough that I could see the faint exhaustion beneath his eyes. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him against the cool dawn air. You didn't eliminate me, I said. No. You could have. Yes. Why? The question wasn't accusation anymore. It was vulnerability. His answer came steady. Because when you move, the city adapts. I frowned slightly. That's a weirdly romantic way to justify insubordination. A small, actual smile tugged at his mouth. It means you force evolution. The word hit deeper than it should have. Evolution, not instability, not threat. Something in my chest, shifted. We were close now. Too close. The wind stilled for a second, like the city itself was holding its breath. He reached up, slowly, and brushed a damp strand of hair away from my forehead. The touch was careful, measured, but it sent a current straight down my spine. My breath caught. His thumb lingered near my temple. "If I had asked you to stop," he said quietly, "would you have?" I swallowed. "No." "Good." His hand moved to the back of my neck, not forceful, just present. The space between our faces narrowed. Heat rose, not instinctive this time, intentional. I hated how much I wanted this. Hated how right it felt. "Max," I breathed. "Jay." We were 1 inch away from crossing a line neither of us could uncross. And then, sirens. Close, not distant. Closing in. Drones cutting through the sky above the financial district. The city had recalibrated. "They've located us," he said. Of course they had. The moment shattered. He stepped back first. Controls snapping back into place. "We need to move," he added. I nodded. Pulse racing again, but for a different reason now. As we turned toward the access ladder, I caught his wrist briefly. "This isn't over," I said. "No," he agreed. The sunrise broke fully across the skyline. The storm was gone. But the real one was just beginning. Breaking into the city's brain is surprisingly anticlimactic. No dramatic music. No cinematic laser grid. Just a service elevator that still recognized Max's credentials long enough to hesitate. "Your access is restricted," the system intoned as the doors slid shut. "Temporarily," Max replied. The elevator descended beneath the tower, past administrative levels, past operations, past detention, into infrastructure. The air changed. Cooler. Sterile. The doors opened onto a cavernous chamber. The core. It was bigger than I imagined. A circular hall lined with tiered server columns that rose like metallic trees, their surfaces pulsing faintly with streams of light. Suspended screens wrapped around the upper ring of the chamber, displaying real-time analytics, traffic density, behavioral heat maps, probability curves. The city reduced to numbers. "So, this is where they decide who gets to exist," I muttered. Max stepped forward without answering, moving toward a central console embedded in the floor. "Manual override won't last long," he said. "We extract what we need and disrupt projection." "Projection of what?" He didn't look at me. "Future instability." The largest screen flickered. "Urban stability program." "Predictive matrix." A web of moving nodes appeared, each one a person, mapped by mobility patterns and behavioral data. Certain nodes glowed red. High variance. Potential disruptors. A sidebar displayed a calculation model. Rebel formation probability, 8.2%. Mobility correlation, 91%. Alpha control compliance index, variable. "Rebel formation?" I scoffed. "I deliver packages, not manifestos." "It's not about ideology," Max said. "It's about autonomy." He tapped commands rapidly. Data streams shifted. The algorithm zoomed in on a cluster of red nodes. Couriers, independent operators, high-speed variables. A simulation began playing on the upper screens. Projected timeline, Year 1. Increased information exchange between flagged couriers. Year 2. Underground logistics network strengthens. Year 3. Coordinated refusal of centralized routing authority. System collapse probability, 34%. "They're not predicting rebellion," I said slowly. "They're preventing it." The word prevention felt uglier than rebellion ever could. Max pulled up my profile. Subject, Carter, J. Variance level, extreme. Alpha control response, inconsistent. Predictive dominance compliance, 12%. My stomach tightened. Dominance compliance? "It measures physiological response to alpha authority cues," Max said. I stared at him. "You mean control?" "Yes." The screen shifted again. A deeper file opened. Genetic markers, variant omega. Receptor modulation, suppressed. Alpha pheromone, binding efficiency, reduced. I blinked. Reduced? Max's jaw tightened slightly. You're not just fast, he said quietly. You're resistant. To what? To him? To alpha influence, he clarified. Biologically, the chamber felt colder suddenly. That's why you didn't yield in containment, he continued. Why pressure didn't produce compliance. Your neurochemical response dampens dominance triggers. I laughed once hollow. I'm defective. No. He stepped closer to the display. Gaze intense. You're adaptive. The simulation updated. Without my node removed from the system, projected influence radius increased. Probability of autonomous network formation, 61%. They're afraid of that, Max said. Of couriers, of individuals who don't bend. The truth settled like a weight in my chest. This wasn't about speed. It wasn't about adrenaline. It was about resistance. My body had always reacted differently. Teachers who tried to intimidate. Alphas who expected submission. I never felt the pull others described. I thought it was personality. It was biology. You knew, I said. I suspected, and still tried to eliminate me. His silence answered. That was before, he said at last. Before what? Before I understood what you represent. I crossed my arms, trying to steady the rush of conflicting emotions. And what's that? He met my eyes directly. Unpredictable evolution. The servers hummed louder. Warning indicators began flashing across the upper screens. Unauthorized access detected. They're tracing us, Max said. Can you shut it down? Not permanently. Then break it. He looked at me. Really looked. You're not just a variable, he said. You're a catalyst. Somewhere deep in the chamber, automated defense protocols began initializing. Red lights flared along the walls. I stepped closer to the console. Then, let's evolve, I said. And for the first time, the system hesitated. When the core began to lock us out, it didn't do it quietly. Server columns flared red. Warning sirens pulsed through the chamber. The upper screens flickered with cascading security alerts. Unauthorized access confirmed, the system announced. Containment units deployed. Time to go, Max said. We ran. The elevator was already disabled. We cut through a secondary maintenance corridor instead. Steel grates underfoot. Emergency lights strobing like a heartbeat gone wrong. Behind us, heavy blast doors slammed shut in sequence. They'll reroute external pursuit, Max warned as we burst into the underground garage. Grid priority override. Good, I shot back. Let them watch. We mounted the black pursuit bike again. This time there was no hesitation, no almost kiss, no quiet confessions. Just speed. The garage gate opened halfway before jamming. Max didn't slow. He ducked instinctively. I flattened against his back as we shot under the rising steel by inches. We exploded onto street level, and the city came alive. Drones rose in coordinated formation. Patrol bikes converged from 3 directions. Traffic nodes began sealing intersections in surgical sequence. They've restored your termination flag, Max said over the wind, and added mine. Romantic, I shouted. He accelerated hard. The chase was different now. No more tests. No more curiosity. This was eradication. They'll try to funnel us toward the river, he said. Limited exit points. Then we don't take roads. We cut sharply onto a sloped pedestrian ramp, jumped a divider, and tore through a construction scaffold that shouldn't have supported a bike but somehow did. The city's prediction engine recalculated in real time. Projected path probabilities flashed across Max's abandoned access interface, still linked through the bike's onboard console. That feed, I said suddenly. Can you mirror it to my visor? Yes. Do it. The live predictive matrix overlaid onto my field of vision, probability corridors glowing like veins of light through the city. They were predicting us. Good. Lean left, I said, then immediately right. They won't model double reversals at high speed. He trusted me instantly. We cut through a delivery alley and burst into a lower-level transit tunnel. Drones followed. Now what? He asked. I smiled. Now I teach them how to evolve. I reached forward, fingers flying across the portable relay Lena had insisted I carry. The system was still mapping my variance markers, still measuring my resistance. So, I fed it noise. Rapid route deviation loops, false biometric spikes, simulated pheromone feedback anomalies. You're corrupting your own data profile, Max realized. Exactly. The algorithm recalculated. Then recalculated again. Probability matrices destabilized. The chase projections flickered erratically. They can't anchor your pattern, he said. Because I don't have one. Ahead, the tunnel opened onto a rising spiral ramp toward rooftop level. We shot upward into open air, just as lightning cracked across the sky again. Drones hesitated midair. The predictive engine was glitching. I injected one final command into the relay. Redirect escalation authorization, Rivera Alpha 01. Max stiffened slightly. What did you... Cut yourself off. He understood instantly. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his command interface. Without hesitation, he slammed it onto the bike's console and entered a manual sever command. Central Coordinator Rivera, the system announced. Authority revocation confirmed. His biometric tag blinked out of the network. The predictive grid lost its anchor. And just like that, the algorithm fractured. Screens across the city flickered. Traffic nodes defaulted to manual control. Drones lost formation. Behind us, the urban stability tower dimmed for half a second, then went dark. System crash. Not permanent, but public, visible. The illusion of omniscience had just broken. We rode through the rain as sirens dissolved into confusion behind us. For the first time since this began, the city wasn't steering. It was reacting, and that was enough. 3 months later, the city still hadn't decided whether we were villains or whistleblowers. The urban stability program was suspended pending investigation. Predictive overreach, the news called it. Algorithmic bias, unauthorized elimination protocols. Max Rivera resigned before they could force him out. He didn't look broken when he left the tower. He looked lighter. Lena called it poetic. Rafe called it reckless. I called it overdue. The warehouse, the hollow, had expanded. More bikes, more riders, more routes that didn't rely on centralized control. We built something different. Independent courier networks linked through encrypted peer-to-peer routing. No predictive suppression. No elimination thresholds. Speed as collaboration, not threat. And the city adapted. It always does. I'm still fast. That hasn't changed. But I don't ride because I'm afraid of being contained anymore. I ride because I can. Today, the sun is high and warm, no storm in sight. I'm on a new route. Legitimate contract, medical supply delivery, nothing secret. Max rides beside me now, not ahead, not behind. Beside. He doesn't wear pursuit black anymore. Just dark riding gear and that same infuriatingly composed expression. You're drifting, he says. I'm enjoying the scenery. You're inefficient. You're obsessed. He glances at me, eyes calmer than they used to be. You still running? He asks. I think about the isolator, the tunnel, the rooftop at dawn, the moment he chose, and the moment I did. No, I say, smiling as sunlight glints off glass towers ahead. Now I choose where I go. He doesn't answer immediately, just matches my speed, not controlling, not calculating, synchronizing. The city hums beneath us, still imperfect, still structured, still learning. So are we. I open the throttle slightly, not to escape, just to feel the wind. He follows, not because he has to, because he wants to. And for the first time in my life, I'm not outrunning anything. I'm staying.